Welcome to Greek for a Week. I'm glad that you have decided to view this week's video. And this week, compared to last week, if you recall, we diagrammed verses 12 through 18a. Well, this week we are looking at 18b and verse 19. But again, we are still in the overall paragraph of chapter 1, verses 12 through 26. Again, a rather lengthy paragraph, but again, this paragraph, specifically at verse 12, it begins the body portion of the letter, which is obviously primarily the bulk of the letter. So let's go ahead, let's translate here. Again, is the second half of verse 18, and verse 19 is right there. He says in verse 18, he says, "But I will also rejoice. I will also rejoice. For I know that this will turn out for my deliverance through your prayers and support of the Spirit of Jesus Christ." So here Paul is, again, he's continuing this concept of rejoicing. If you recall in verse 18, he says, "Then what, except that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached." And it's in that he's going to rejoice. So he's going to continue to rejoice. And that's this verse Allah. You could say here that though this is a contrasting conjunction, it's contrasting some aspect of what precedes. So probably contrast to verses 16 and 17, where it talks about the sum of those who preach Christ but do it with an impure motive, do it with jealousy and bitter envy. But he says here, as long as the message of Christ is moving forward and continuing, he will continue to rejoice. So the kare samai, here's our future. Okay, this is our future tense. This is the, first person singular, future, middle indicative, and this is of Cairo. So we will go ahead and provide that lexical form for you. Now we're going to look at verse 19. Again, not much there in 18. So verse 19, you have a gar. So here is the gar here that is probably an explanatory gar, further explaining what precedes, and again, potentially strengthening and supporting the argument that precedes in verse 18. Hati here is probably a hati of content, that is, for I know, and then what is it that I know, and then that's moving forward. It's the fact that basically his deliverance will come through your prayers and your support. And again, the idea of deliverance here is not gospel salvation, but the deliverance is probably his deliverance from his imprisonment, or you could say the bonds, the chains that he is wearing. The apa beisetai, so here is another future middle right here, and that is the third person singular future middle indicative of apa baino. So apa, and then here's baino. Okay, and then you have ace soterion. So this is a prepositional phrase here. Okay, and the ace there is probably indicating result. So it's resulting in, that is his deliverance. It will turn out, or you really could say here, through the means of his prayers. So the dia here, all the way through Christou, this entire prepositional phrase, joined by kai here, that's really the means by which he will turn out for some kind of a deliverance. And so the for deliverance here, back to this prepositional phrase, is probably a result. So it's resulting in his deliverance. How? Now we're going to answer the question how is that going to be possible? And here's our dia, which is a prepositional phrase. Through the means of, again, your prayers. That would be the prayers of the Philippians. And then, of course, the support here of the Spirit of Jesus Christ. So, again, I hope that's been helpful. Just a few verses there, a portion of 18 and 19. We're going to get the ball rolling here a little bit further. We're going to look at a few verses next week. And then I believe another couple of verses the following week, and we might be able to wrap this up and then diagram it. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining.